What's up, guys? This is Adi from Tilos International, and I'm here to bring you a very special pre-match edition of the show. I am joined by Philip from the Romanian football Twitter account. He's got a very big account on X, and he talks about everything that has to do with Romanian football. And obviously, we have brought him in here to talk about our next opponent. We are traveling away to Romania to play against FCSB. There's some incredible history and drama with this too. We're going to get into all of that. But before we do, Philip, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you, Ari. How are you?
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to get some insight into into Romanian football. But before we do, Philip, do you mind giving us a little bit of insight into your background in football and how you came to start doing this and covering Romanian football?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, my dad is Romanian from Craiova, and he came to Canada about 30 years ago. Yeah, about 30 years ago. And so my mom's side is Italian. And anyway, so I'm half Romanian, but because I'm very close to my dad, I always was very passionate about Romanian football since I was small, watching the Craiova games with him, uh, even though we didn't always do very well. But it's been a journey just seeing where we my first match, I think, was in 2006, watching that, seeing where we came from players like Mutu and Kivu to like the dark ages for a few years after that, and to now like a team that's inspiring and giving us hope with a lot of the results. Yeah.
So that's awesome. So it always usually starts from our family members. For me, it was my grandfather. So it usually comes from our family where we get our love for football from our ethnic countries, as we say. Now, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're tuning into this pre-match, we're going to get some great content here from Philip. He's going to teach us about FCSB and Romanian football. You can also support us on Patreon as well, where we do exclusive interviews as well as enhanced analyses. Now, Philip, talk to us a little bit about FCSB. Everyone kind of wants to know about the drama, about the name change to FCSB. And there's two teams basically claiming the history and titles of Steaua Bucharest. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this, what's going on. It's just from what we've heard from some Romanian fans and what we've read, it's an incredible bit of drama and story here. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, the funny thing is it's not the only case. There's also a similar situation with Craiova, but less of a situation now than it was before. But with FCSB and Steaua Bucharest, of course, it's a big deal because it's the biggest club in the country's history. They won Champions League, or
Right.
European Cup, I guess, at the time. And it's just it's really sad, but at the same time, you understand why it happened when you look back. So basically, after the fall of communism, a lot of the clubs that were owned by the government, right, became private. So uh, for FCSB's case, it didn't go private immediately. It was until I think 2003 or so when Gigi Becali, the owner of FCSB, bought Steaua Bucharest, well, transferred the logo, the name, all this stuff to his ownership, right, from the army. But they're saying the big dispute is that he got it illegally. He obtained it illegally at the time. So that's where the big argument stems from. And that's why a few years ago, I think it was 2015 or something like that, that the army basically said, okay, we are going to create our own club because you don't want to pay us or whatever, right? We want to create with the original logo and the name, and
Right.
we're going to take you to court, basically. So now FCSB cannot use the same logo, the same name, even though technically it was continuous, like it never dissolved or anything. So I understand why kind of both sides, but in my personal opinion, FCSB is Steaua because it's, like I said, it was continuous. Even if there was some illegal business in between, the club never dissolved. So I consider FCSB as Steaua.
And it's really difficult, I guess, when you're in a legal battle with the government, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think they
wow,
just want to make money off of it. But
of
also
course.
Gigi, as the owner, Gigi, he's famous for a lot of bad business and illegal things that he did in the past. So he's kind of a shady character and very eccentric, but that doesn't help either, right? But yeah,
And the current owner, you said Gigi's his name.
Gigi, yeah.
So on a couple of our socials, people told us that he was like a farmer, a shepherd before he
Shepherd, yeah,
became a real
Shepherd,
estate tycoon. That's
yeah, Shepherd.
incredible.
Yeah, because
Wow,
after
what
the
a
fall, there was there was a lot of opportunity after the fall of communism to kind of take over goods that the government owned and stuff. So he kind of made his way in there very slyly, I would say, or intelligently. And he has good business acumen, no doubt. But he's also, like I said, eccentric and done some shady dealings too. But
wow.
we expect that from the Balkans, right?
Right. And someone even had we even had read that he has been loaning like some of his first team players to teams in the second division when they play against the new Steaua Bucharest so that they stay. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah, just to like keep them down. Yeah. Although not not only that, but also CS Steaua, like the Club Sportiv Armata, right? The army team, they are not allowed to promote anyways, or they haven't been allowed because of Romanian sports law, which says publicly owned teams, fully publicly owned teams cannot be in the first division, basically.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that's another thing too.
That's insane. So
Yeah,
they're fighting this battle when they can't even get promoted anyway.
yeah. So
For now.
for now, we'll see if anything changes. But
That's hysterical. That's wow. That's incredible history. That's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that, Philip. I know that the audience is going to get a kick out of that. Um, Now talk to us. Let's move forward a little bit. Let's talk about FCSB. Let's talk about how they're doing. After looking at the table, kind of looking at how they've been doing in the Romanian league, I see some similarities to kind of what Olympiacos has been dealing with this season, where there's been some struggles domestically. Now, of course, they're only 3 points out of the top, but they're sitting in fifth place. But they've been doing quite well in Europe so far. 9 points in the table. They only have one loss that came against Rangers. And it's kind of mirroring Olympiacos a little bit. Like we look better in Europe than we do in Greece. We've had some struggles against some of the lower table teams in Greece, but we're in form. We've got two big back-to-back derby wins that we're coming off of. So we're hoping that form carries into this match alongside the fact that we do much better in Europe. So tell us about FCSB, how things are going domestically and the shape that they have going into Europe.
yeah, well, first off, I just want to say I was really impressed with Olympiacos last season and making history like
Yes.
that. That was really cool. I was happy to see an Eastern team, well, Southeastern European team, doing something like that. Uh, Especially in this day and age, it's very hard to compete with the big clubs. So, I
Yeah.
mean, the richer clubs. Sorry,
Yes.
but
Yes.
uh, yeah, I was really impressed with that, and I was happy for you guys. So that just saying that first off, and then about FCSB in the domestic league or FCSB. Basically, the issue has been, I think, a lot to do with the owner again, Gigi Becali, because he switches the squads complete. He's very erratic, so sometimes he's does things properly. Sometimes he just gets angry, makes a decision, substitutes the guy in the first half just because he's like he tries to get too involved and not let the coach do his job basically. And that when he starts doing that, that's when the team's affected. I find goes downhill a bit. But sometimes when he lets them do things the way they want to, then it's not as bad. Uh, but so I would say, for example, in the domestic games that they lost recently, like to Botoshan, it's because they played the B team, which I understand you got to rest some players for Europe too. But sometimes it's a little too much, like changing the whole entire squad and making some strange decisions and not letting the coach work. So there's that, but they've still, as you said, they've still won a lot of games too, and they're still not far from the top, anyways. But in terms of Europe, they've been punching way above their weight and really impressing in that way. I was really not expecting that win against the Danish champions. So, uh, in terms of players to watch out for, I would say Darius Solaro, the midfielder. Although he's not so great with Romania for FCSB, he's like fantastic. He can give an excellent through ball, good IQ, good physical, somewhat decent shots. Yeah, he's a good player. But the best player to look out for, I would say, is Birlija in attack. He's been on fire this season, scoring a lot of goals. Not the most technical player, but very physical, very confident. A classic number 9, which Romania has been really missing for a while now. And he recently just scored for Romania as well on his second start. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So, very interesting point man to watch out for. You gave us a couple of danger men. Now, tell me a little bit about the kind of the tactical setup that FCSB uses. I've seen them line up like 4-2-3-1. I've seen them line up 4-3-3, for like a 4-1-4-1. What kind of approach do they usually take in Europe in that respect in terms of their formation? And does FCSB like to defend more? How, we are a pressing team. We don't possess to win. Generally, if you park the bus on us and force us to work, we struggle. But if you're going to come play us and balls to the walls, you're going to raise your line. That's where we we punish you. So tell me a little bit about FCSB's approach in Europe. How do they approach these games?
Yeah, so I would say in Europe, generally 4-3-3. Very in a lot of games, I would say fairly attacking, but against Rangers, it was a complete disaster. So again, it depends on the game, but I would say 4-3-3 attacking generally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you think that I mean, FCSB, are they going to sit back more and defend and look on the counter, or are they going to play us more balanced with more possession?
I think since you were basically the toughest fixture other than Man United, I think this is one game that now, especially with all the points racked up, they can afford to just, like you said, sit back and try to counter. I'm hoping that's what they're going to do, especially after what you just said. I'm not 100%, but I would hope that they would counter. I don't think they're definitely not going to park the bus fully, I would say, but definitely be cautious, I think, against you lot. So, yeah.
Yeah, Olympiacos fans look at that defeat to Rangers, a team that we drew, was pretty evenly matched. So they see that defeat to Rangers and they think, okay, we should be able to do something here. Rangers took the smart approach against us. They kind of let us come to them. We struggled. We were lucky we didn't concede more against Rangers in a way. But the game ended 1-1, pretty fair result. So there's a lot of Olympiacos fans that think that we should be able to do something away in Romania. But it seems like they've got a couple of pretty talented players that we need to watch out for. How does FCSB handle the press? We press high. We love to force pressure on the center backs, especially. Does FCSB play out of the back, or will they just clear themselves out of pressure to avoid the whole thing?
It depends on the team that we see. For example, against Rangers, they switched out not completely, but a lot of the normal starters. And again, that comes down to the owner's decision again. And that's, I think, part of the reason they got punished so badly. But if they play with the regular starting lineup, I would say they can play from the back normally. Although sometimes the keeper and defense do like to play long balls to like Birlija, like I said, because he's kind of a target man, and he's quite good in the air, and he's good at basically chasing like a fox in the box, chasing the ball, and he's not scared. So that's kind of one advantage that they have. And I don't know if you saw the goal that he scored, the first goal against Midtjylland, I forget how to pronounce, but he chested it as it was bouncing over the key, right? He just chested it into the net, and as a celebration, right? Which was really impressive and shows, his confidence and his mentality. So I think in some instances they could play the long ball, like I said, but normally when they play their best lineup, I think they play out of the back. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what you think the weak point of FCSB is. Aside from the fact that the owner seems to get involved in player selection, what would be, if you were Olympiacos and you were trying to strategize how to best take advantage of FCSB, what do you think would be the point of weakness that they could take advantage of?
I think I would say the center backs. Like the defense is not the greatest. Like there's a lot of attacking options, and even the midfield with Olaru and Nejuma are quite good. It's definitely the weak point would be the defense, and occasionally the young goalkeeper, I say he's not that young, Tednovanu, he's prone to blunders sometimes. So he can sometimes have amazing games. Sometimes he makes a dumb mistake. So I'd say the keeper and the center backs are the biggest weak points at FCSB.
So maybe our high press could pay dividends if we are able to get the center backs under pressure early.
Yeah, I would say so. And for FCSB, the advantage would be the counters with the quick wingers and the skills and Bitalija as a target man. So it's the opposite. Yeah.
So you kind of lent into the next thing for me. So you do have quick wingers, which will, we have our starting left back just returned, Francisco Ortega, but he's known to get exposed on the counter. He's not very quick. He can get beat by pretty much any winger with some decent speed and half decent dribbling ability. So who do you have on the right that might be able to punish us on that? Do you have a winger that can take advantage of perhaps a left back that's not known to be the best defensively?
Yeah, I would say there's Alex Bolutsa, who's actually quite quick, and he used to play for Slavia. I don't know if you. Okay, this is kind of a FIFA thing, but I don't really play FIFA anymore. But he had a card that was a Europa League card that he had like 90 pay, like very good.
Oh wow!
A few years ago. And anyway, so he's definitely a quick player. He's kind of inconsistent, but he's one to watch out for on the wings. I would say Balutza. Miculescu is so-so. He's not really prolific. He's been struggling to score. And then there's Stefanescu, who's started out more as a left and right back, like more at the back, but now he's also playing more often as a winger. So
now Sorry,
I was going to say also Koman, before he left for Arabia, he was probably the biggest danger for FCSB, but he's gone now, so that's a good thing for you guys too.
Yeah, nice thing for us. Now talk to me about atmosphere, stadium atmosphere. What kind of reception can we expect for OLYMPIACOS when we're in Bucharest?
I would say it's going to be a pretty packed stadium, very intense. Ultras are quite many, I would say, behind the goal, especially the usual, maybe comparable to Greece. Greece has huge fan base, huge ultras. But I would say definitely you're going to feel the presence there of the FCSB fans. And it's a 55,000 capacity stadium, so it's going to be full. Yeah.
And I was made aware by some Romanian fans. They said that it's not FCSB's stadium. It's a stadium that they use because they don't have their own stadium. Is that a correct bit of information that we received?
Yeah, that's true. Although they did build a new Stadion Ghencea, a new one. So they might be using that in the near future. I'm not exactly sure on the dates yet, but that's in the works.
So this is like a public Olympic type stadium, right? Or municipal?
Yeah, this is like the national team stadium. So it's actually bigger than the one that Steaua will move to eventually, but it's very nice. Yeah.
Wow. So 55,000. Okay. So that's a nice size, So now that we've gotten some background information, we've talked a little bit about the team. Tell us about the coach.
The coach. Well, he's not. I don't know how much of an impact he's gonna make, but he's a Cypriot basically. But he hasn't. He's been hit or miss, I would say. In the early years, he was quite inconsistent, I would say. But now, I would say he has a positive impact when Gigi's not involved. Like he's serious, he's focused, he has more. He's not as rigid as previous Romanian coaches were, I would say. So that's one thing. Like, what exactly do you want to know about him?
So it's Haralambos, right? That's the current coach for FCSB.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of curious because I don't know much about him necessarily as a coach. I haven't seen much of him personally, but I was under the impression that he had a pretty strong personality. So it's kind of it's interesting to hear that he can be overridden by the president on many of these decisions. And again, the guy's paying the check, so I guess that makes sense. So
no, he can be, but I think he's definitely not as passive as you said, not as passive as previous coaches, where they like there was Rege Khan who literally is the most quiet. Like he didn't care about anything. He was completely overrun by the owner, and that still happens with Harambulos, but it's not as much, I would say.
And is it obvious to see when the president is getting involved in some of these player selections? I mean, because obviously in Greece, we know this happens with some owners with certain selections, but sometimes it can be difficult to see. Is it pretty obvious to see when the president's getting involved with player selections?
Yeah, I would say when you see like whole lineups being switched after a loss, or just some players that were doing well just being dropped for no reason, and then the most obvious is when in the first half a player makes a small mistake, or this hasn't happened in a while, but it's happened, and he gets subbed off in like the first 20 minutes, like things like that.
And
And
it's not because Greeks can have hot tempers, so it can't be Charalambous just getting upset with
I
somebody
mean,
and moving off.
it could be, but this was a while back. I know that Gigi made a phone call because they show him on the screen making a phone call, and you just see the substitution being.
Wow,
So,
that's so really, really what we could see in terms of how the coach approached this could have a lot to do with how the owner decides he wants to act in that match.
yeah, but that said, I do think it's better now than it was with previous coaches. As you said, like he has a little more personality, so I feel like he stands up a little more to Gigi. But at the end of the day, Gigi's still gonna do what he wants. So it's not as bad as previous coaches, but he's still doesn't have full autonomy.
Of course. Well, it's these Balkan owners, they like to have complete control over everything
Yeah,
as it were.
and he's got a really big mouth, and sometimes that hurts the team too. But he can be funny, though. He can be funny. Yeah.
Well, Philip, as we come to the end of the segment, we like to get a bit of a score prediction from our guests. So, what do you think will happen in this match? You guys are hosting. You've done very well in Europe so far. How do you see this playing out?
I think if we do a high press, or sorry, I should say FCSB does a high press. As you said, I think they're gonna get punished. So it'll be maybe like 3-1 in that case.
Oh wow!
But otherwise, if they play, smart counterattacking and give it their everything, then it's possible. And obviously the best starting lineup possible. I would say maybe an optimistic 1-1.
Okay, I think
yeah.
That's kind of what I'm envisioning, because I'm envisioning an FCSB that's going to stay back. I was looking at some of the data from the early matches, and I saw that possession tends to be less, and they tend to sit deeper. So that's kind of what I was expecting might happen. So I think maybe 1-1 would be a fair result if what I'm thinking comes true. I'm hoping they raise the line a little bit. Maybe Karalambous decides to get a little bit aggressive. So I'll hope for that for our case, but we'll see what happens.
There's some games this season, mostly domestic, I would say, where they've been very attacking, but even moments in Europe. But as you said, this type of game, they can't afford to. I think they'll play, as you said, more cautiously.
Yeah. And do they, one final question that I forgot to ask before, do they do any man marking? Because right now, our striker, Ayoub El-Kabi, is just insane. He's on fire. He's converting everything. He's scored, I think, all but one goal so far that we've had in the Europa League. We've scored 5 goals, and he has 4 of the 5. So do you think they're going to have a plan for man marking, or is that not something FCSB does?
I think I haven't really noticed that. I would say more zonal generally, but in the case of where there's like a special player to watch out for, yeah, it could happen, especially in Europe. So yeah, it could happen. I didn't notice it against Rangers though. So yeah, I would say it really depends on how they're scouting this. Like as you said, if Karambulos is taking this seriously, then maybe he knows to man mark that player, as you said. Sorry, what was his name again?
Ayoub El-Kabi. He's our Moroccan Prince of Goals, as I like to call him.
Oh, I think I've heard his name before. Yeah, I think last season he was on fire too, right?
He was. Yep.
Yeah.
He most goals
Uh,
in Europe
yeah.
or in a European competition for the knockouts. So since and he still has like
He's,
since 2024, he's just insane.
yeah. But he's been there for a long time, right? Or no?
No, he came last summer.
Oh,
So
really?
he's been this is his second season. Yeah.
Where did he come from before? Was it free?
You know what? I forgot the team that he came from. He was a free agent when we got him, but he really didn't have a career in Europe. He just played really in Morocco
Wow.
in the Middle East. So
Oh, I didn't expect that.
incredible
Okay.
find. Yeah,
Nice.
he's an incredible player. Well, Philip, thank you so much for joining me. Before we go ahead and close things up here, please tell the audience where they can follow you if they want to learn a little bit more about Romanian football or kind of keep up with what's going on. Tell them where they can find you.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter as at ROFTBL, Pro Football. And I try to post there a lot of match ratings and statistics for player performances of Romanians abroad. I post sometimes about the league, European matches, things like that, and the national team,
Fantastic.
of course. Yeah,
Of course, because we all love our national league teams, or our national teams, even if they disappoint us.
yeah.
So, as is the case with Greece, but Greece is on the up and up. So let's
It's
see what
getting
happens
better
there.
again. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So hopefully we see a little bit more Balkan dominance come back to the forefront.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, hit that like and subscribe button. We are Theodros International. We are always here to bring you the latest content and to review our opponents. Can't wait to see what happens. Really huge game. We're hoping to ride the momentum we have from our back-to-back derby wins. And let's see what happens with FCSB on Thursday, which is actually at the time of recording, it's tomorrow. So if you're in the United States, hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And we'll see what happens with this FCSB OLYMPIACOS matchup. So take care, guys, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving for those of you that are celebrating it. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week.